Hi, I'm Jasper Peach, and along with Women's Health, Lod and Melly, I'm gathering stories from people like me who have compromised immune systems. Here on Dja Dja Wurrung Country in Castlemaine, I'm speaking over Zoom with people across the Lod and Melly region.
My name's Trace. I live here on Dja Country. I'm in my late 50s, but my spirit feels still very young, hopefully all my life like that. I work mostly from home in my little studio in the garden and also a lot out in the bush. I was going into a lot of schools and libraries and festivals doing little workshops, but now they've kind of all gone on to Zoom. Some are starting to maybe potentially come outdoors again, but I'm saying no to all the indoor ones. I make children's books and I do work about connection to place in particular, really acknowledgement of First Nations folk and human rights things. They're my main things that I work on topic. And my play, my body's getting older and like problems, but I'm really hanging in there with the play. So I dance and I ride a bike. I've gotten an e-bike because I have had a lot of pain with the riding otherwise. That's been really liberating. And I swim. And so I work hard to keep my health in as good a shape as I can. My people, well, just before the coronavirus, my relationship of 10 years ended and my son moved out of home. So I found myself living in these walls on my own, but outside home with the community of all creatures. I also live within a lovely community. I think the thing about the play for me is like it's a mental health thing, that balance, especially as I'm living inside the walls on my own. My health situation I could describe as a messy concoction. I've got colitis, and that's caused me to get osteoporosis and then arthritis, exhaustion, and anemia, or prone to be anemic. I also have a thing called upper respiratory resistance disorder. That means like every 2 or 3 minutes I stop breathing in the night. And so that's more exhaustion and more for the poor old immune system to kind of feel good in. On top of that, I have a cerebral aneurysm. I really need to manage the breathing because when I don't breathe for long periods of time, the blood pressure, you know, if you've been underwater for a long time, you feel this blood pressure in your head. And I wake up with these drowning dreams and from not breathing. And the problem is that can put pressure on the aneurysm and cause it to burst. So for me, that's a life-threatening thing. And so to have even just a cold, a common cold, and because I've got all these things, I'm trying to keep my immunes up, which is hard work to keep doing that. Even just a common cold can be pretty complex and completely like take me out. I have all that monitored as well as some other things. They're probably not so immune. There are other things though. And, you know, I get quite a lot of pain during the night as well. I won't bore you with the rest of it. I don't take my health and my life for granted at all. You know, I was already someone that was like that, and it just continues to remind me of the gift of every single day. How am I still bubbly and happy and joyful and grateful and feeling fully alive? Well, for a start, like I've seen 3 members of my family die in a moment, actually 4. Well, 1 went in a coma. So I'm very aware of my mortality always and our mortality always, and how incredible it is to be alive. You know, one thing about the colitis, it wakes me up really early. And so I get up. I'm a very visual person. So I go out and I love seeing the sunrise. And so I go out in the bush and I take my brekkie and I find my way up some hills. I think just starting the day with that absolute awe and marveling and seeing like the seasons pass and all the gifts that come in the seasons you're already setting up your day in that way, even if the rest of the day is like so hard or mayhem. You've got this, you start well. Also, the other thing for me is my work is really meaningful. It's basically about inspiring care for the planet and one another. I could say that I was really isolated in some ways, even within a beautiful community. And so in the last 2 years, I've become more and more connected with nature. And I just feel that really gives me so much joy. The week that we went into the very first lockdown, I had a book launch due that day that it went down, and that was from a 3-year book project. I had a huge launch organised and 30 events. And that was basically a year's income out the door in one strike. And I guess I just pivoted. It was really hard. My son came back for a while, and he was really struggling with coming back, and he was awake at night and I was awake at day, so I didn't really spend time with him. But occasionally there was someone to touch. On that topic of touch, I'm still really struggling with that. Much better than before, though it's still a tough one. One thing that happened for me is I started like hanging off trees and stuff and stretching off trees, and then I started leaning into them and just finding that physical connection with another live being. And I call this thing Troga, and I inspired a lot of people to get into it. And I've got this sort of lean, a certain angle of a lean that I love the most. And I've written a lot of poems in the last couple of years, and there's one about that. I can give you a line or two of it. Find a tree on perfect angle on which to lean, on which to dangle. Know that you, like roots of tree, are held by a core of gravity that's been the same forever past, holding all through time so vast. I'm incredibly privileged in that I've got a contract for another book, and I'm working on that. I can work from home. I did a lot of Zoom sessions in the end. And also I've converted my home. I did a very, very basic renovation. And there's someone in the other half of the house now, because what am I going to do in the house that 3 of us lived in? I put the laundry outside, so we all use the same washing machine. We share the vegetable garden, and there's also someone living in the garden in a kind of converted shed type situation. So the other thing for me, I have a little room that I call the cocoon room, and I can put the heater on there at night. But what I love to do is go outside with my tiny little billy sort of fireplace thing, and I just might have a fire as company for maybe an hour and under the stars, and then just go back into the cocoon room in the winter. For me, it's this thing, like I feel like there's this invisible group. There's a very loud group who don't want to be vaccinated, and there's a big majority who are they're like, oh, they've got this kind of health privilege where, oh well, we'll get corona, it's just inevitable, and we're going to go out now and drink in cafes and out indoor places and get on with it. And then there's this whole other lot that I call the invisibles, and a lot of them and me are laying very low in a lot of situations, feeling, this sort of almost exclusion, because I don't want to be going in where they're not in a mask. And so I don't go to places, and then you don't get invited to places, and you get more and more isolated. And I have people tell me, oh, I want to get corona so then I can go on a holiday because I'm not vaccinated. And I try to just see their point of view, so I don't just get so upset by it, because to me it feels so deeply disrespectful of what we are grappling with every day in trying to keep ourselves alive, basically. Not to get long corona, long COVID. many of us, it would amplify everything and some things or what things, who knows, but we're dealing with enough already. Your health is everything. I just feel like this lack of understanding and lack of hearing from many who are health privileged. We're not all doing what you're doing, and there's reason for it. And I don't know how long we'll be doing this for, but gee, we've got to find ways to be able to do it together. You know, I have found this dance that started outdoors. That's been fantastic to just feel some together. I feel really tender talking about this stuff because, you know, I'm a lot more privileged and in so many ways than a lot of the people we're talking about here. I just can't believe that we're not sort of centering these voices, because this is what this is about. And it just feels so incredibly rude. It's this lack of humanity of caring for who's in the back. You want to bring them to the front, in the center, and put the care around them rather than, oh, we can do this now because, yeah, we're free. It's like, actually, can we just look who's in a difficult situation right now because you're free? I don't know. I was wearing the full-on mask on the train, and I had to go down yesterday to the city for some scan stuff. You know, you kind of feel like the freak in the room, and that's not a good thing. You know, it was this moment for a while where there was this solidarity, because I always take a mask on the train for years, always had to. For a moment there, we were all the same, and now it's like there's a whole lot of invisible going on, and it's not okay. We need to all work together and listen to everyone, every voice. The ones that die or whatever, yeah, but they were already, and it's like, they're humans. Put them at the center and talk about them. I was really grateful the other day. I went to a party and I thought, I'll go really early and I'll only stay outside, and when it gets too much, I'll leave, because I figured they'll all be inside. It was a beautiful night, so people were outside. I felt like I could hold the space. It was fine. But I did have to go into the bathroom, and I was like, oh God, am I going to be this freak who's walking through with my mask? And like, there was a queue for the toilet. It's like, what do you do? Nobody's got it on their radar to like, let's make it so that we can have a way for everyone. It just, you know, it's invisible. It's invisible for so many. So we're talking about accessing care over the last couple of years. I've enjoyed having some of the things on the phone instead and being able to stay in my safe zone. Yesterday, I went to some high-level screening and to the city. It was really edgy for me to do that. I took my P2 mask that I'd been given at a recent blood test. When I got to the hospital entrance, they gave me a brand new one of those things that you can't seem to get. But I walked there. I didn't get the tram. I just walked there because there's no way I was going to get on a tram. I went to meet a friend before, and she was arrived after me, and so I sat down and started doing some weaving. I took the weaving in with me. I found some really good things to weave with in the bush. It was that holding me inside this highly clinical space, which was even more so now that we're all so masked up. But I kept weaving, and it was, what was I focusing on? Actually, I focused on the weaving. And I had a feather in my hair for protection, and I decided to really keep, because I've been so connected to nature these days, to really keep that strong in me as I went into this environment. So it was kind of strange that I was going down for help to help me, and it was putting me at risk by actually going there on the train. I had a counsellor on the phone, and at one point we could go back into the space, and she's saying, do you want to come in? I'm like, no, I feel way, way, way better not being in the room with you. Sorry. Seen some of my health practitioners in social settings where I was definitely not hugging anyone, and they were hugging everyone. And do I want to be in the room with them? Because basically if they've hugged them, and them, that means they're connected to them. And you know, it's my vigilance and it's my precious life. And I don't want to get long COVID or worse. And I actually don't want to get COVID to be home alone sick. Is really not my idea of what I want to do. It's hard enough as it is. A friend of mine was offering up a kind of indoor event, and I really wanted to go. And I said, are you aware that there's been 120 cases in our region in the last week? And he was like, oh, really? Oh, no, I didn't know that. Maybe I'll have to think about now that you've said that. Thank you. Because people are tired of looking at it, and that might not seem many in some ways, but, it's around, and I know the people. Some of us eat meals alone all week, and now I've started to invite myself to sit in people's garden and bring my dinner. Be nice for people to ask me a bit more. So I wonder about other people who don't have those connections that I have. How's it working for them? I saw community lunch was on, but I believe it's inside. Unless you're unvaccinated. So the people who are health compromised can go and sit out with the unvaccinated people. It's a funny old thing, isn't it? I feel like I live my life, my best life, as I'm living. It's incredible to have that privilege of like being able to grow vegetables and make books and dance. And I think for me, it's more about how I want to live than a bucket list. Just to live well. Yeah, simple life's okay for me, and just to keep doing the creative work and to keep well, I don't have those things where I have to go and climb the whatever it is. Yeah. As long as I can still see and have my creativity and my fingers to move, I'm probably happy. I'd just like to say on that point, I would say I have an absolutely beautiful life. I really struggle, and I have a really beautiful life. My friend I sent a friend of mine a photo of my arm with the cannula in it yesterday, and next to it the basket I was weaving, and said, we choose what we want to focus on. And she wrote back and said, it's the perfect example of coping craft. And that's a beautiful thing to call it. And for me, it's even more than just coping, though. It's like it's living and it's thriving and it's loving, and connecting connecting deeply with nature. And, so many people on the planet are struggling, and to find what we have and what's in our pockets that we can do to have that coping craft and bring it beyond coping. Yeah, I just wish that well for everyone. Like, I know that there's so many people doing it hard, and I feel so grateful that I have creativity, and I just really, really pray for the people that feel isolated and in pain and dealing with significant ill health, and hope they have ways to have it coping craft and beyond coping. Yeah.
You can play your part in protecting people in our community who have compromised immune systems. Vaccinate, boost, wash your hands, mask up and stay safe. Women's Health, Loddon Mallee, centering the voices of people with compromised immune systems.